Hey y'all, welcome to this week's show. It's going to be a pretty interesting one, actually. I have a very short entry in my book, The Medicinal Shrubs and Woody Vines, on a plant called Schisandra. Schisandra, there we go. I believe that's the proper pronunciation. We have one variety of Schisandra in my region. It's called Schisandra glabra, or star vine, and it has no documented use in herbal medicine. However, the Schisandra family, it's actually a family of plants, all of which have documentation as being useful, except for this one. So I think more than likely it is a medicinal plant or an edible plant. I have not found it listed in edible guides, but I can't seem to find any Schisandra berries of other varieties that are not edible. I'm going to have to experiment with this one, and you know how much fun that's going to be. They eat a berry, well, put a berry in your mouth, spit it out, see if you get poison. Put a berry in your mouth, bite into it, don't swallow, spit it out, see if you get poison. Put a berry in your mouth, swallow a small little piece, see if you get poison. That's actually how it's done. That's actually how we test out unfamiliar plants. It can be remarkably unfun. Remember one time, several years ago, there was a mushroom. The same way we test mushrooms. Now, there are only a handful of mushrooms so poisonous that testing them that way will actually kill you. And it is best to learn those mushrooms and don't experiment with them at all. Don't experiment with them at all. The gomphus being one I would never, you don't even want to touch a gomphus. It's the only mushroom that grows in North America, to my knowledge, that is actually toxic to the touch. But then you have like your destroying angel, your death cap, Amanita family. You don't want to play around with those, okay? There are other poisonous mushrooms. There's one, it's a little brown mushroom. I cannot remember the name of it right now. You don't want to play around with that one. Jack-o'-lanterns you don't want to play around with. A few others. But those are the main ones, and you really do want to learn to identify those mushrooms first. Now, when it comes to mushrooms, they may have an acrid smell. That is always a sign that you don't want to be eating that mushroom. They may have a very bitter, nasty taste. That's a sign you don't want to be eating that mushroom. They may burn your tongue. That's a sign you don't want to be eating that mushroom. But as bad advice as it is, as dangerous as it is, that's how people identify poisonous or edible mushrooms. The taste a little bit, spit it out, progressive method. I have obviously not always had very pleasant results from that. A lot of mushrooms in my area, especially polypores and boletes, are not well identified. We have more mushrooms in my area than pretty much anywhere in North America, except perhaps the Pacific Northwest. And because we get warmer temperatures than they do, we may even have a few varieties they don't have, but we pretty much have everything they have. We have mushrooms that grow in the mountains of North Carolina that really only grow in the Himalayas elsewhere in the world. I mean, tons of mushrooms. So I have been known to do that taste test experiment. And generally, it has worked well for me. Now, I did find a polypore one time that I could not identify. It kind of looked like a dryad saddle. It kind of looked like a hedgehog mushroom. And it was more like a polypore. It was weird, okay? And I could not identify it online. I could not identify it in books. It had a wonderful smell to it, a really unique fragrance. If I had to say it, it was almost a perfumey fragrance. Maybe a little like somewhere between lavender and musk. It was weird. And I thought, most polypores are not poisonous. The dryad saddle's not poisonous. The hedgehog mushroom's not poisonous. I don't know of any poisonous lookalikes to this mushroom. So I did the progressive taste test. I smelled it, and like I said, it had a really interesting, fragrant, perfumey smell. And I thought, I'm not sure this is one I want to eat, but it could be useful in other ways. Let's see what the properties of this mushroom, what they are, right? So I took a little taste and spat it out. No problem. The taste was not half bad. It was tough, like I expected it to be, being a polypore. I thought, all right, maybe this is, something to be cooked and included, like I might use a bouquet garni in a stew or something, right? Cassoulet with a little bouquet garni that has some aromatic herbs like lavender. Pretty nice, actually. All right, combines well with lemon. We'll see how this works. All right, took a bite, chewed it up, spat it out, no problem. No problem at all. Starting to get a little taste for it. It had a hint of bitterness that I really didn't mind. All right, let's try it again. Took a little taste, chewed up, ate it. No problem, no problem. About 4, 5, 6 hours later, a terrible stomach upset. I mean, cramping, diarrhea, the whole bit. I learned my lesson on that mushroom, and I documented it for my own use. I still don't know what the heck the thing is, but I will not be eating that mushroom again. Now, again, generally speaking, this is how we approach plants with which we are unfamiliar. It can be deadly. You do not want to be doing that with monkshood. You do not want to be doing that with, several. I mean, monkshood's the one that really comes to mind. Wolfsbane, aconite. More than likely, if you took a little taste of it, your whole mouth's going to go numb, and you would know there's something really wrong with this plant as you're drooling and can't speak. That little touch may not kill you. And the same is true of yew. Like I've said, the areoles berries of the yew, depending on the variety and where they grow, some people actually eat them. Some people say if you eat one, you drop dead immediately. Not a plant I really like to play around with internally. Someone mentioned recently it is a beautiful wood, and it is fantastic for making bows. This guy said he made a guitar out of it. I think, yeah, I can see that. It would be a gorgeous wood. Maybe a pretty good tone wood, given how hard it is for bow making and such. But they're definitely plants you don't want to fool around with. Obviously, you don't want to taste poison ivy. That's going to be a real bad idea. Poison oak, poison sumac, anything like that. There are some extremely deadly plants. Poison hemlock. You definitely don't want to play around with that one. However, it does have some very, very, very limited use in herbal medicine, as does aconite, as does yew. And really, really minuscule doses, poison hemlock and water hemlock have been used internally. I am absolutely not going to recommend that. But apparently Michael Moore, the herbalist, found that it could be useful to help someone who was overdosing from amphetamines like cocaine and such, methamphetamine. It would lower the heart rate and maybe keep them from dying. Okay, that's extreme use, and hopefully I'll never have to explore it for that purpose. American mistletoe is another one. It's not like European mistletoe. It's not a plant you want to use internally. European mistletoe relaxes the muscles, lowers the heart rate, lowers the blood pressure, etc. American mistletoe does the exact opposite. It's like strychnine. It increases heart rate, causes muscle cramps and spasms, can cause a heart attack or stroke very easily. Definitely not one we want to play around with. Although Native Americans found that it did have some very limited and very tiny small doses medicinal use. So, generally speaking, you might probably won't die using the very limited progressive taste test method, but I am not going to recommend you do that. I'm going to recommend you absolutely do not do that. I am going to recommend that you get your Plant ID phone apps, your field guides, your Plant ID discussion groups and websites. You get to know your local extension agents and botany departments and all that. And do everything you can not to have to do that. Because, when I was growing up, we didn't have the internet and cell phones and all that. And the access I had to field guides was what was at the public library, and a lot of times they weren't very good. A lot of times they were kind of dangerously bad, actually. And I did have to do a little more experimentation with plants. I've told you before about my experiment with Gelsemium. That was incredibly dangerous, but turned out I learned a lot about the plant and how to use it. I take risks with my health, basically so you don't have to. And I'm really very cautious with my own. But so if I tell you don't do this, don't do this. But that being said, it looks like I am going to have to experiment with Schisandra, because the variety that grows here in my region has no documentation. As best I can find, it was 2022 when I wrote this book, and I did a huge amount of research. I mean, y'all know how I do. I do a huge amount of research. I read through just hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of documents and books and such to find the information that I bring to you. This was one, couldn't find anything on it, which is odd, because the entire rest of the Schisandra family has documented medicinal and edible use. And that includes, let's see, we've got 11 varieties here. Schisandra grandiflora, see if I can say that right. That means the Schisandra with the big flowers. Its fruit is edible. I'm going by Plants for Future now. This is naturalmedicinalherbs.net, my favorite resource to start investigating plants. They have just an amazing variety, huge database. Schisandra grandiflora grows in the Himalayas, which are actually somewhat similar to the Appalachian Mountains in North Carolina. There is speculation that they were once perhaps the same mountain range before the continent split up. So we have a lot of similarity in plants and mushrooms and such that grow in both places. So the edible fruit, berries of Schisandra grandiflora are good raw or cooked. They have a pleasant flavor. They make a nice dessert fruit. And they grow in bunches like grapes, which is always nice. That one has no medicinal documented use, however. Schisandra, what is this, Henryi? No, yeah, Henryi. Again, edible, fruit, raw or cooked. No medicinal documented use. This is the main one used in medicine. Wu-wee-zee. Don't you love saying that? Wu-wee-zee. Wu-wee. Schisandra chinensis. Now, Wu-wee-zee, commonly used in Chinese herbalism, where it is considered to be one of the 50 fundamental herbs. See, this is like really one of, like with kudzu and ginseng and such. I mean, this is one I learned about in studying traditional Chinese medicine. It is an excellent tonic and restorative, helping in stressful times, increasing zest for life. It is considered to be a substitute for ginseng and is said to be tonic for both male and female sex organs. The fruit is antitussive. That means it helps stop coughing, calm a cough. Aphrodisiac, hepatic, astringent, cardiotonic, cholagogue, expectorant, hypotensive. So good for the heart, good for the liver. What else do we got here? Expectorant, helps settle the stomach. Hypotensive, lowers blood pressure. Nervine, pectoral, good for the chest, essentially. Sedative, stimulant, and tonic. So it has adaptogenic properties. Low doses of the fruit are said to stimulate the central nervous system, whilst large doses depress it. The fruit also regulates the cardiovascular system. It is taken internally in the treatment of dry cough, asthma, night sweats, urinary disorders, involuntary ejaculation, chronic diarrhea, palpitations, insomnia, poor memory, hyperacidity, hepatitis, and diabetes. Externally, it is used to treat irritating allergic skin conditions. Yes, it's a very good herb for eczema and psoriasis. The fruit is harvested after the first frost, sun-dried for later use. Let's see, the fruit contains lignans that have a pronounced action on the liver. One clinical trial, there was a 76% success rate in treating patients with hepatitis, and no side effects were noticed. The seed is used in the treatment of cancer. The plant is anti-rheumatic. A mucilaginous decoction is obtained from the branches and is useful in the treatment of coughs, dysentery, and gonorrhea. Now, the fruit is also really highly valued for its edibility. Can't remember the name of it. Something flavor fruit. It's a very complex flavor. It basically has all the flavors that your tongue can interpret. Fruit eaten raw or cooked, usually dried and used on journeys, is very sustaining, rich in sugars. It has a sweet-sour flavor. In Russia, a paste made from the fruit is mixed with, I'm not familiar with this plant, actinidia, Actindia, arguta, Arguta. I have to look into that one too. Must be a Russian plant. But anyway, it said it would counteract the insufficient acidity of that species. So whatever it's mixed with, it's just mixed with it to make it more acidic. Okay, well, maybe I don't need to look into that. Who knows? It forms grape-like bunches, 10 centimeters long. Young leaves can be cooked and used as a vegetable. Yeah, and it also, basically a sap of the fruit is used in like shampoos and different things like that as well. So yeah, very important medicinal herb, very much used in Chinese medicine. Excuse me. Got a little tickle in my throat. Let me get a sip of water here. All right. So Schisandra rapanda. That one, let's see, where does it grow? Japan, woods in Japan. Again, edible, fruits good raw or cooked, and often used in preserves and to make a tea. What else we got? Rubiflora, red flowered. This one also no medicinal use, but fruit good raw or cooked. Delicious, it says. It actually says it's delicious. Again, forms in grape-like bunches, and it's from the Himalayas. Boy, I don't know if I can actually pronounce this one. Schisandra sphenananthera. Sphenananthera. This one is also Asian, but it doesn't tell me a specific country. Oh, okay. No, it's this one's just like Wu Z, but is more common in southern China. Yes, also it's used interchangeably. Yeah, same uses as the Wu. And let's see, it's edible. It says they have no specific information on the edibility of the species, but the fruit is probably edible because it's a Schisandra. And that's what I'm thinking of, the one that's native to our area. Now, there is another side of the Schisandra family, which is called Kadsura, Kadsura. These are in the Schisandra family, but they are a little bit different. Okay, this is really interesting as well. Kadsura coccinea. It is also from China, Guangdong, Guangxi, Hunan, Sichuan. Okay. Edibility, yeah, the fruit is used as an edible, but it's more important as medicinal. The roasted fruit has a sedative and aphrodisiac quality. It's also pectoral and tonic. So you can imagine, as you can imagine, it's quite popular in China. Good for the chest, heart issues, tonic, good for the digestion, but sedative and aphrodisiac. I think we can think of a few herbs that would fit that category that are essentially illegal in the United States. Might be worth looking into as an alternative. Now there's Kadsura heteroclita, and it's a high elevation. No, yeah, no, I'm sorry. It's a low elevation plant that actually. This is interesting. Okay. While it is a high elevation plant, it's one you're going to find in the mountains. You're not going to find it in the higher elevations of the mountains. You're actually going to find it in the deep ravines along river valleys. Very interesting. At 400 and 900 meters. But anyway, edible fruit. With no medicinal use of that one that I'm aware of. Katsura japonica obviously comes from Japan. Decoction of the dried fruits is stomatic and tonic. So it's used medicinally. And it's, well, yeah, it's another mountain one. Kadsura longa pedunculata. Longa pedunculata. Wow. The peduncula is elongated, so that's what that means. So there's your Latin lesson for the day. The fruit, roots, stems, and leaves are antitussive, anodyne, carminative, and decongestant. So this one's particularly good for chest issues and settling the stomach. Yeah, another one that grows along extreme edges and damp, shady areas. Also widely cultivated in Japan. And the last one is Katsura oblongifolia, another Latin lesson. It means the leaves are oblong. Oblongifolia. Latin's not that hard, really. Edible fruit, raw or cooked. Medicinal uses, none known. So, wow, this was also from China, Hainan province. So, mostly the Schisandra is an Asian herb, apparently a range that goes into Russia and Japan. And I think there was one that was South China, South Asia, but I think it was mainly restricted to China. So that's the reason we don't know a whole lot about the Schisandra that's native to my region. It's like I said, the mountains of North Carolina, we get the same plants. We get ginseng. We get stuff that grows in China. Most of the rest of the country does not. There's a very small part of upstate New York that has a similar climate to us. There's a rainforest out in Washington State, or is it Oregon? Well, I think there's both. Part of Oregon, part of Washington State has a very similar climate to us. And you do tend to find a lot of more Asian-type plants. So I'm going to have to experiment with this one. Wish me luck. I mean, I enjoy this to a very great degree. I love finding a plant that has uses that have not been documented in American herbal medicine or Western European herbal medicine, or foraging guides or whatever. And I've done that with several plants. I've written about them. Coleus. I did experimentation with Coleus. It's not documented to the best of my knowledge in any other herbal work. I found it to be a really interesting plant, a great nervine, sedative, hypnotic, really fantastic muscle relaxer is what it is. Um, well, staying in the mint family, I've done work with bugleweed that a little was written about it, going back to really like ancient Greek herbal medicine, a little bit in early English, not really in America. Ajuga reptans, um, kind of similar qualities. It's an excellent sedative. It's also an excellent liver herb. Really helps with liver inflammation and all that. Um, it's both of those are in the mint family. When you look at the mint family, okay, this herb's going to be probably safe. That's not always true. Mints can actually be quite dangerous, some of them, the more strong ones. But it doesn't have a strong scent to it. That's one of your big warnings. Like if it smells really, really strongly minty, like peppermint or water mint, you really shouldn't use a whole lot of it. That may surprise you, but I mean, pennyroyal is along the same lines. And as I've mentioned many times, pennyroyal is one of the few herbs, official medicinal herbs, that has been documented to have caused a death in the last 100 years in America. And that's because a woman wanted to induce an abortion. She took essential oil of pennyroyal and bled to death out of every orifice of her body. Um, Mints can be quite strong, but when they don't have a very strong minty flavor or very strong lemony flavor, they somewhat safer, we can say. I mean, basil can have a very strong flavor. You don't want to take medicinal doses of basil just willy-nilly. But eating it culinarily is no problem. That's basically the way it is with most mints. Rue, I've experimented with rue, but that has a long history of use. Various ones. Definitely Gelsemium, and that does have documentation, but really has not been used much in American herbalism for well over 100 years, going on 200 years. Most herbalists have no idea what Gelsemium is. I find it to be an incredibly useful herb. Isn't it weird? Those are three that will just knock you out, actually. You would think that they would have been really well documented, especially with all the hippie herbalists of the 60s and 70s. But no, they really weren't. The bugleweed is also an excellent cardiotonic. It slows and strengthens the heart rate, much like a low dose of a digitalis-like plant. Really do like bugleweed quite a bit. It's very, very bitter. Well, again, all those herbs are very, very bitter. I've experimented with a few other herbs, but I don't have a lot of definite results on some of them. But when I do, I will share them. So, Schisandra, definitely an herb worth looking into. Needs to be the one in my region. Definitely needs to be researched, and they're very popular. As I said, the berries are really quite tasty. They're very good for food. Very good in jams and preserves. And these are widely propagated plants in Asia. Definitely one you might want to add to your backyard garden. If you're into permaculture, you're growing gumi berries and goji berries and sea buckthorn and maybe autumn olive if you can grow it in your area, and all those good berry bearing plants that are really hawthorns and easy to grow, extremely nutritious. Cornelian cherry would fall into that. Honeyberries, just wonderful stuff you'll never be able to buy at the grocery store. Passion fruit and kiwis, not the fuzzy kiwis, but the Siberian kiwis and such as that. We really get into that kind of thing in permaculture. Definitely, I would add Schisandra. And even if you're not into all that, Schisandra is just so nutritious, so good medicinally, so balancing to the system. That's one of the reasons it's so valued in Chinese herbal medicine. Is it is a perfect balance of what would be considered yin and yang, or the energies of the body, and really quite tasty. It smells great too. So wish me luck on trying this variety next year when the fruit comes into season. But do look into. I know you can order them from One Green World. I'm sure you can get them from a few different places. I mention One Green World quite often on the show. They don't sponsor me at all. They should. Hey, if y'all are out there, y'all should sponsor me. But they source interesting, unique plants from all over the world and give you really good growing directions. And I've ordered. I can't remember what the last thing was I've ordered from them. And Stark Brothers is really good. I like Stark Brothers a lot. Always. Oh, gosh, I'm blanking on the. I'll get it for you next week. Next week, if I can remember. There's a great herb seller, plant seller. Strictly medicinal. There it is. Strictly medicinal herbs. If you're looking for anything you want to grow in the garden, in pots, containers, definitely herbs that are harder to find, they got them. They specialize in them, and they excellent customer service, excellent quality. And if any of those nurseries want to sponsor this show, I would be very open to discussing it with you. All right, y'all, have a great week. Stay warm. It's awfully chilly out there right now. Spring's right around the corner. Start planting that garden, and I will talk to you next time. The information in this podcast is not intended to diagnose or treat any disease or condition. Nothing I say or write has been evaluated or approved by the FDA. I'm not a doctor. The U.S. government does not recognize the practice of herbal medicine, and there is no governing body regulating herbalists. Therefore, I'm really just a guy who studies herbs. I'm not offering any advice. I won't even claim that anything I write or say is accurate or true. I can tell you what herbs have been traditionally used for. I can tell you my own experience and if I believe an herb has helped me. I cannot nor would I tell you to do the same. If you use an herb anyone recommends, you are treating yourself. You take full responsibility for your health. Humans are individuals and no two are identical. What works for me may not work for you. You may have an allergy, a sensitivity, an underlying condition that no one else even shares and you don't even know about. Be careful with your health. By continuing to listen to my podcast or read my blog, you agree to be responsible for yourself, for your own research, make your own choices, and not to blame me for anything ever.